Welcome to the deep dive. Today we are stress testing the BigQuery documentation.
Oh, this is a good one.
Yeah, specifically, we're looking at what you might call the law of locality.
Yeah.
If you work with Google Cloud, you know the rule.
You absolutely know the rule. Your external cloud storage buckets must be in the same region as your BigQuery dataset, period.
It's supposed to be a hard stop. The documentation is crystal clear.
It is. If your dataset's in, say, Europe Central 2, and your bucket is over in US East 1, you should get an error, an invalid location error.
Right. But today, we're digging into a user experiment that basically suggests this hard stop is, well, more of a polite request.
A very strong suggestion.
Exactly. We found a case where a user, first by accident and then very deliberately, just blew right past this rule. So our mission today is to figure out how, and maybe more importantly, why Google tells us it's impossible when it's in place. Apparently not.
So it all started with a simple misconfiguration. A user pointed an external table to a bucket on a totally different continent.
And they were expecting the whole thing to just fail.
Yeah.
Right.
Bracing for it, a 400 invalid region error, something like that. But instead, the query just ran. It executed successfully.
So, of course, you can't just leave that alone. You have to push it.
You have to. So they set up a deliberate test. We're talking 3 continents here. A BigQuery data set in Europe.
Yes.
One bucket in the USA, another one way over in Australia.
And they just queried them all together.
Yep. A simple union all. It joined rows from the US and Australia right inside that European dataset, and again, no error. BigQuery just went out, fetched the data from across the globe, and returned the result.
So how is that even possible? I mean, we all think of regions as these sealed containers, for data sovereignty and performance.
Well, under the hood, and this is the key, BigQuery is a massive distributed system. It's all running on Google's global fiber backbone.
The backbone.
Right. So when you run that query, the engine spins up these compute slots. And it turns out those slots can reach across the backbone to grab objects from remote storage. The wall between regions, it's a software setting, not a physical barrier.
Okay, so it works. But let's get practical. If I'm pulling a tiny file from Australia to Europe, the latency must be just awful.
And that is the catch. The user actually called it the latency tax. The query took 8 seconds.
8 seconds? For what, a few kilobytes?
For 30 bytes of data. 30.
Wow. You're paying the cost of a transcontinental handshake for a payload that could fit in a single data packet.
Exactly. And it's not just about time, it's about money, too. Let's talk about what they call the minimum wage of the machine.
Okay.
BigQuery has a minimum billing unit per table. So even though they only processed 30 bytes, they were billed for 20 megabytes.
20 megs for 30 bytes. And I'm guessing network egress fees are in there somewhere, too.
Oh, absolutely. That's the real hidden cost. You're not just paying for the query itself, you're paying to physically move those bytes across the ocean.
So the documentation is really a, don't do this, it will be expensive and slow.
That's it. It's there to protect you from yourself, from that egress bill, not because the hardware can't do it.
But that raises a huge governance question for me. If these regional boundaries are, permeable, what does that mean for something like GDPR, data sovereignty?
That is the most dangerous part of this whole thing. We rely on the platform to enforce those boundaries for us.
Of course.
If BigQuery allows a cross-region fetch without even throwing a warning, the entire burden of proof, it just shifts to your IAM policies, to your architecture. You can no longer assume the region setting is a real safety net.
So the documentation is a guardrail for performance and billing, but it leaves the compliance door slightly ajar.
Perfectly put. Google's must is really a should for optimization. But so many of us, certified professionals, we mistake these supported configurations for hard physical limits.
The takeaway here seems pretty clear. Don't build your production pipeline on this. It's a terrible idea. It's slow. It's expensive.
Right. But knowing that it's possible, that changes how you have to view the cloud's architecture, doesn't it?
It forces you to actually verify your own constraints instead of just trusting the platform defaults. The docs describe the happy path, not the only path.
Exactly.
It really makes you wonder, though, if these hard regional boundaries are actually more like suggestions, what other impossible architectural rules are just waiting for someone to test them?
That is a very, very expensive question to go out and answer.
Something to think about. That's it for this deep dive. Thanks for listening.